Would you believe me if I told you that a kid can have hundreds of followers, dozens of group chats, friends at school, a phone that never stops buzzing, and still feel incredibly alone? In my work as a mental health therapist, I have worked with parents, teachers, other counselors, and school administrators to help them better understand about kids today. And one of the ways that I do so is stressing this fact. Being connected is not the same thing as feeling connected nowadays. We have created a world where young people have more access to one another than any generation before them. They can communicate with their friends from the moment they wake up until the moment they go to sleep. They can see what everyone is doing, where everyone is going, who's hanging out together, and even what they're wearing. But the saddest part about those facts is that despite all of the access that kids have to one another, many of them are actually still really struggling with loneliness. And sometimes the very technology that keeps them connected can make that loneliness feel even worse. If you're new here, I'm Amanda Hill, licensed mental health counselor and owner of Connections of Hope, a mental health private practice with multiple locations in Indiana. I've worked in the mental health field for more than 20 years, helping children, teenagers, adults, and families navigate anxiety, relationships, family dynamics, and emotional health. And there's one thing I wish parents and schools would pay more attention to. That's the difference between a child who is around people and a child who actually feels like they belong. Because a child can have friends and still feel lonely. When most of us picture a lonely student, we may tend to imagine that child sitting by themselves in the cafeteria or standing alone at recess. And yes, sometimes loneliness actually does look like that, but not always. Sometimes the lonely student is sitting right in the middle of a group of friends. They're laughing, they're participating, they're getting invited places, they may even be really popular. But inside, they're thinking, nobody really knows me, or I don't think I can be myself around these people. If they knew what I was really struggling with, would they still like me? Or I feel like I'm always trying to fit in. That's loneliness too. Because loneliness isn't necessarily the absence of people, it's the absence of meaningful connection. And that distinction matters. Think about what it's like to be a teenager today. Not to age myself, but when I was growing up, if my friends went somewhere without me, I would have likely heard about it the next day, if at all. Kids today can watch it happen in real time. They see the pictures, they see the videos, they see the group chat, they see who's together, and they see who got invited. And sometimes more importantly, they see that they weren't. Imagine sitting alone in your bedroom and watching 10 of your classmates laughing together somewhere that you weren't invited. That's not just loneliness. That's loneliness with photographic evidence. And even when a child isn't being intentionally excluded, social media can create the perception that everybody else has more friends, more fun, more confidence, and a more exciting life. I'm sure you have heard others say, they're comparing the reality of their own life to everyone else's highlight reel, which honestly couldn't be more accurate. But these young people with still very underdeveloped brains don't always have the emotional maturity to recognize the difference. And there's another piece of this I think we sometimes overlook. This is that kids can communicate constantly without ever really talking. They send memes, Snapchat pictures, they like posts, send emojis, respond to videos, maintain streaks. And boy, like seriously, this took me some time to grasp as my kids entered this stage of their life. But kids nowadays interact with dozens of people throughout the day without having one meaningful conversation about how they're actually doing. That's a very different kind of connection than sitting across from someone who notices something is wrong and says, "You don't seem like yourself today. Are you okay?" Human beings need to feel seen, we need to feel heard, and we need to feel understood. And kids need that just as much as adults do. Honestly, probably even more. Some kids are performing belonging. As therapist who has worked with kiddos and teenagers, I can tell you that many of them are performing when it comes to belonging. And this is something I especially want parents and teachers to watch for. Because some children become incredibly good at performing connection. They learn how to appear happy. They learn how to laugh when everybody else laughs. They learn what clothes to wear, what trends to follow, what to post, and how to act so they're not rejected. But constantly trying to become the version of yourself that other people will accept is exhausting. And eventually it leaves a child wondering, do these people actually like me, or do they like the person I'm pretending to be? This is why belonging is so important. Belonging says, I don't have to perform to earn my place here. I can be awkward, have a bad day, disagree, make mistakes, just be myself, and I'm still accepted. That kind of emotional safety is incredibly powerful for a developing child. Another place adults can miss is that loneliness doesn't always look like sadness. A lonely child isn't always going to tell you, I'm lonely. They may become irritable, start spending more time in their room, suddenly stop wanting to go to school, become obsessed with their phone because they're terrified or missing something. They become overly sensitive to rejection or start saying things like, nobody likes me, nobody cares, what's the point? Or they may simply become quieter. Sometimes the student who seems like they just want to be left alone actually wants desperately to feel connected, but just doesn't know how to get there. And sometimes loneliness begins to overlap with anxiety, depression, low self-esteem, school avoidance, or other emotional struggles. This is when we need to look beyond the behavior and start asking what might be happening underneath it. So if you're a parent out there watching this right now, I want you to know this. One of the best things you can do is stop measuring your child's social health by the number of friends they have. Instead of asking, who did you hang out with today? Start asking, who do you feel like you can really be yourself with? Ask, do you feel like you have someone you can talk to when you're having a bad day? Or ask them, do you ever feel lonely even when you're around your friends? These kinds of questions give us much better information about our kids, while creating opportunities for connection that don't revolve around screens. Have your conversations in the car. Eat together when you can. Take a walk, go get coffee, do something one-on-one. And when your child finally opens up, please just listen. Resist the urge to immediately fix everything. Sometimes what they need most is not advice. They need someone willing to sit with them and say, tell me more. So what if you are a school administrator or a teacher and you're watching this? Schools actually have an enormous opportunity here because children spend such a significant portion of their lives inside school buildings. And creating connection doesn't always require a huge mental health program. Sometimes it's much smaller. This may look like a teacher knowing a student's name, a counselor checking in, or an adult noticing that a student suddenly stops sitting with their usual friends. Creating clubs and activities where students with different interests can find one another is also an amazing idea if you can afford to do that in your school. Along with taking the time to teach students how to have conversations, navigate conflict, repair friendships, tolerate rejection, and include others. Perhaps most importantly, I highly recommend that all schools create a culture within their own walls, where students actually believe that someone there would notice if they weren't okay. Think about how powerful that message could be for a child. Please help me make a difference in these kiddos' lives by stopping ourselves from confusing popularity with connection. One of the biggest mistakes we make is assuming that the socially successful child is emotionally connected and healthy. Popularity doesn't protect someone from loneliness. Followers don't protect someone from loneliness. A full social calendar does not protect someone from loneliness. And a phone full of notifications certainly doesn't protect someone from loneliness. What protects children is having relationships where they feel seen, valued, safe, and accepted. Kids don't necessarily need 20 friends. Sometimes they only need one. One good friend, one teacher, one coach, counselor, or parent, an adult who notices. Isn't that crazy? The fact that just one person has the ability to make them feel like they matter. So if you're a parent, teacher, counselor, coach, school administrator, I'm asking that you continue paying attention to the kids who are sitting alone and also start paying attention to the kids who aren't. Because loneliness often hides in a crowded hallway. It can hide at a lunch table full of friends. It can hide behind thousands of followers. And it can hide behind a smiling student who looks completely fine. Our kids have never had more ways to communicate, but communication and connection are just not the same thing. A child doesn't need people around them. They need people who know them. They need places where they belong, and they need adults who are willing to look beyond what we see on the outside and ask, do you actually feel connected? Sometimes that one question can open a conversation a child has been waiting a very long time to have. If you're a parent, educator, counselor, or anyone who cares about the mental health of kiddos and teenagers, I encourage you to subscribe to this channel. I'm going to continue talking about the issues we're seeing in kids today, and more importantly, what parents and schools can actually do to help.